So in this lesson, you are going to be learning how to determine from a graph if a relationship is proportional. And this lesson starts on page 45 in your math book. So go ahead and turn to page 46, and on the left-hand side, copy down the information that I have. Okay, so let's look at example 1. We are just going to focus on the graph. And so what you have to do in today's lesson is when you have a graph, you need to determine if it's proportional or not. And all you need to do this is look at your graph. And it needs to meet two criteria. It needs to be a straight line, and it must go through the origin. So we're going to look at this graph over here. So this is a straight line. So for it to be a straight line, it can be like exactly horizontal, it could be vertical, or it could be diagonal. Okay, so any of those would be straight. Not straight would be like, sometimes it'll go like this. Okay, something along those lines. So this clearly is a straight line. And then the other thing is it needs to go through the origin. The origin is this point right here, and it has a coordinate of 0, 0. That's the origin. And this graph right here goes through the origin. So we would say that this graph is proportional because it's a straight line and it goes through the origin. So I want you to go down to A, and we will work through A together. Now in A, there is no graph. So we are going to sometimes have to create our graph. So this says that James earns $5 an hour babysitting. And we need to determine if it's proportional, and we need to graph it, and we need to explain our reasoning. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and graph it. So actually, I'm going to make a table because sometimes it is helpful to make a table. And so I'm going to put the money, and then this is going to be hours. Okay, so if James doesn't babysit at all, he's going to earn $0. And if he babysits for 1 hour, he'll get $5. For 2 hours, he'll get $10. And for 3 hours, he'll get $15. So I am going to graph those points. So here's 0, 0. And then 1 hour is $5. So remember that we don't see a 5, so it's going to be somewhere here. It's going to be like halfway in between the 4 and the 6. And then for 2 hours, he's going to earn $10. And for 3 hours is 15. So that's going to be in between the 14 and the 16. When you're graphing, I want you to use a ruler, because if not, your graphs may appear to not be straight when they really are. So it's hard for me to use a ruler on my iPad right here. So your graph would look something like this, okay? So now that we have our graph, we need to determine if it's proportional. So we're checking for two things. We're looking, is it straight? Well, yes, it's straight, okay? And the second thing is we're looking, does it go through the origin? And this is the origin right here at 0, 0. So we would say that our graph is proportional because it's straight and goes through the origin. Okay, so when it's asking us to explain our reasoning, we're explaining the reason why. What's our proof? And our proof is that it's straight and it goes through the origin. Okay, next, go to page 47, and we're going to look at B. So in part B, this shows us the number of calories an athlete burned per minute of exercise, and we need to determine whether it is proportional, and we need to explain our reasoning. Okay, so in this case, they give us the table. So we need to graph those points. So we have 0, 0, and 1, 4, and 2, 8, and 3, 13. Oh, I don't see a 13, but it's going to be in between 12 and 14. So there's our points. And then use your ruler to connect. Whoa, that was bad. Sorry. Use your ruler. I'm just going to make mine darker. Yours will be much more straight than mine, okay? And not as thick. Okay, so it should look something like that, but even better. So now I need to determine if it is proportional. So I'm checking, is it straight? Yes, this line is straight. And does it go through the origin? Does it touch right here? Yes, it does. So then it's proportional. So we're going to say proportional because it's straight and goes through the origin. Okay, so we're just checking for those things. So let's actually go up a little bit to example 2. And I want you just to look at this graph. Okay, so if this question is asking us if it's proportional, this one would not be proportional. And can you figure out why? So this graph is straight. However, it does not go through the origin. This is the origin right there, and it doesn't go through. So to answer this question, we would say not proportional. Whoa, that looks bad. Let's try this again. Not proportional because it doesn't go through the origin. Okay, so in order for it to be proportional, it has to be straight and has to go through the origin. If it doesn't meet both of those criteria, then it is not proportional. Okay, next turn the page to page 48, and we're going to look at number 3. So on number 3, they give us 2 different graphs, and we need to determine which one is proportional. So softball plus is not proportional because it doesn't go through the origin. Fun center would be proportional. Okay, so I'm not going to write down the reasoning just because I don't have that much space, but if I were to write it down, our answer would be that fun center is proportional because it is straight and it goes through the origin. And it kind of says it right here for us. Okay, so what I want you to do is number 1. Okay, so for number 1, we need to graph. So it's $12 for 1 ticket. So there's 1, and there's 12. And it's $24 for 2 tickets. And it's $36 for 3 tickets. Okay. And so we have to be careful because sometimes they won't give us the 0.00, but sometimes we have to use common sense. And the other thing is that also always continue your graph all the way through. This is called the y-axis. Sorry, my iPad got messed up. This is the y-axis, okay? So you always want to make sure that your graph goes all the way through the y-axis. So it should look something like this. And so yes, and it makes sense that if you don't buy any tickets, then you wouldn't spend any money. So we would say that this is proportional because it's straight. And goes through the origin. Okay, now I want you to do number 2. Okay, so the book palace is the one that's proportional. So we would say that book palace is proportional because it's straight and goes through the origin. Okay, so remember, if we have a graph to determine if it's proportional or not, then we have to make sure that it is straight and it goes through the origin. And